Okay, so today the topic is leveraging demand management with JD Edwards. So after a brief introduction, I'd like to get into an SCM overview, talk about what demand management is, its capabilities, then get into the integration with JD Edwards, slip into Oracle Cloud and actually do a quick demo if everything is obliging, and then have some, of course, questions and answers at the end. So that's me. The bios always look good, right? But I have implemented supply chain from the Philippines, Caterpillar, to Buenos Aires. That was a confectionery manufacturer, to Zurich. That was actually Rockwell Allen Bradley out of Milwaukee. Number of places in between. And just quickly, I think perhaps what I'm most appreciative of is that I started out in manufacturing, and I had to get Apex certified and ISO 9002 training certified. And I think that was invaluable. That core foundation, an understanding of those distinct blocks, those worlds of manufacturing, fulfillment, replenishment, and from ISO, that education of how it's all about the process and the obviously the continuation and the constant improvement of the process. I think for today, perhaps what's most relevant is that I'm on my 13th cloud implementation in supply chain, and I have 4 cloud certifications. Okay, in today's SCM world, the SCM digital transformation, I still always get kind of a knee-jerk reaction when I see that, especially perhaps being a supply chain guy. It seems like this rather grand, nebulous cliche, right? The digital transformation. But of course, in supply chain, we know it's very real. We've been in it for years. It's constantly moving. It's constantly changing. So where is it headed? Well, according to Gartner, it's headed towards a cockpit central. What does that mean? Someday there's going to be folks just sitting in areas and looking at terminals and making approvals, right? Asking for approvals, sending out orders, getting new customers, getting new suppliers, very limited resources. Now, how soon are we going to get there? I have no idea. And personally, I think it's, for some time, we are going to need some level of resources in the warehouse, on the shipping and receiving docks, for the time being anyways. But make no mistake, that's where we are headed to some degree. Next bullet point is artificial intelligence. Of course, that's going to play a big role in it, right? I already know of 2 warehouses in the United States that are using AI to do their picking, large warehouses. They have some neat little forklifts, plastic ones. They're integrated. It does the picking for them. So we're on that path. We're moving there. So at DeNovo, we have several AI initiatives in place right now that are occurring across differing sectors. Now, most of them are still at a business management level, and many of them are utilizing Microsoft tools. They haven't yet trickled down to us grunts in supply chain, but it's just a matter of time. And in fact, it's going to be sooner than later. And demand management is going to be part of that whole process. It's going to be demand management, demand planning, supply planning. It's going to be those monitors in that cockpit central. Okay, so that means your next bullet point, you're going to be using, of course, automated transactions. And I know that seems, obvious at this point, but especially in healthcare, you still see faxed orders. You still have orders being called in, sales orders. You still have purchase orders being called in. But everything is moving towards the automation of transactions, right? And Oracle, of course, Fusion is based on that premise. Okay, and the next bullet point, some challenges with that, though, is that the accounting is also at that level, right? So those of you familiar with it, that gets into the subledger accounting, and especially on the groupings of items and how I do that, because we often actually struggle when I'm dealing with clients with legacy systems and they've got accounts down to the item level. How do I bring that into Oracle Cloud? It's a challenge. there is some, I shouldn't say there's none, there is some, I do have a product account in the account string, you know, for the GL. I do have a revenue account under sales order management attributes at the item level in cloud, but really you're running off the transaction. So in fact, at the client I'm at right now, where they want to use the UN and the NIGP codes for the expensed items, and we're grouping those, and then we'll write the subledger accounting for them. Okay, so along with that though, if you've got these automated transactions, you obviously have to have visibility into it. And so I need my metrics and I need my key performance indicators. And of course, that means I also need my inventory real-time analysis. And as a supply chain guy, again, I kind of cringe when I see that. What is real time, right? I mean, well, when's the last time you ran, depletion? When did you, run your costing processes? It all depends on your industry and your organization. But that analysis needs to look into, hopefully you're doing some type of auto replenishment. It needs to look at your balances. It needs to look at your, your overall costing, your valuation, and into your revenue recognition. And that's not a typo. Policies, you need to constantly be reviewing that and making sure you're getting your money in, legally as fast as possible. And the endpoint is the direct customer communications. And I'm not just talking the portals, right? A lot of people know we work with the portals on the supplier side, on the customer side. But in cloud, it's called CX, but it's going to get to where we need to chat real time, right, with our customers and our suppliers and bring the orders in, either sales orders or purchase orders. The portal's part of that, but CX is what they call the piece in Oracle that uses the chat functionality. So what is demand management? What are the tangible benefits? So first point, it allows you to enhance your demand forecasting accuracy, streamline inventory planning, and optimize supply chain operations. Okay, so that says a lot. Okay, and that's why you want to use demand management with JDE Edwards. I want to grab my sales data. I want to grab my purchase order history, my sales order history. I want to grab marketing information. I want to bring that over to demand management, right? So that I can do that right there. If I know what I'm bringing in, then I know what the future is. I know how to plan everything from the size of my warehouse to ordering. So second point, it enables real-time visibility into demand signals, empowering the business to make informed decisions and respond swiftly to changing market dynamics. I'll get into some of that, how that piece works later on, the signaling. So demand management includes advanced analytics, collaborative forecasting, and demand sensing capabilities. This solution enables you to drive efficiencies, reduce costs, and improve customer satisfaction, right? Because of what I said in that first point. If you can do all that, you can optimize and streamline. So that's why I want to use it. Okay, so I've got a qualifier here, and this gets into what we're doing at Denovo. What is the difference between demand management and Demantra demand management? Well, in summary, demand management is a broader concept that encompasses the entire process of predicting and balancing demand. And Demantra specifically focused on statistical forecasting and collaborative planning with the Oracle ecosystem. Okay, also, what's demand management versus demand planning? Demand management looks at consumer demand in the short term, while demand planning covers more extended time frames. Okay, what does that mean for us if I'm integrating from JDE Edwards? Typically, we have 3 strategies. We have 3 buckets, but they're not in stone, right? It's integration. You slice and dice within all of these. The first one is coming over just to demand management. So I talked about those pieces that you want to bring over and be able to look at. And we do have clients who do just that. That's perhaps the easiest route to go. But with that, I'm limited. I have no collaboration, right? I can't involve other people. I have no approvals. I can't take it to any to demand planning or supply planning and do any actual ordering from it. Okay, so that's the next piece, incorporating demand and supply planning. And then the third piece is actually integrating back to JDE Edwards. Now, we do integrate back within all of those. So again, it's slicing and dicing. Now, you can also create the orders at every one of those strategies, because it's like a min-max order report. depending on the system that you're using. I can run the report and see what orders I need to create. That doesn't mean I have to actually create them, right? Perhaps I don't have those modules. I'm not in Oracle. But if I have demand management, I can still do the forecast. I can still run the report and see what I need to order going forward. And then to some degree, or whatever level you want, you can then integrate that back. But that's the thing. All of these pieces, of course, require effort and money and more modules in Oracle. So that's why today, even though we're focused on demand management, you're going to see me bouncing back and forth, and some of these slides incorporate demand planning and supply planning. So in Oracle, we have supply chain execution, which is where inventory is, but then we have supply chain planning, and these are the modules that are underneath that umbrella. So you can see I've got demand management. Replenishment planning is strictly replenishment, but then I've got supply and demand planning. And those are the ones that I'm focused on today. Well, actually collaboration as well, because you're going to need that if you're using demand and supply planning. You know, this is the Oracle slide, and I know it's 100,000 feet, but those building blocks, sense, predict, and shape, they're real. And so from a very old library, I show this because then I show this next slide. So what does that actually mean? That sounds good. Well, this is what it means. I'm sensing my shipments, my orders. I can then predict by forecasting. I can then collaborate with people on those teams, respective teams, where I grab that respective data elements from, and create the orders, create the responses. So even though they're kind of a generalization, that's what they do. This is also an Oracle slide, but I like it, and even though it seems high level, often people come to me and they're like, well, there's so much detail in the configuration. Well, a lot of that is one-time configuration. And if you look at this overall flow, this is it kind of in a nutshell. I'm gonna collect my data, right? I'm gonna go into it and build a plan from that data. I'm gonna constantly refresh that plan. I'm gonna adjust it with input from different people. I'm gonna approve it, and then I'm gonna make the request to actually perhaps create those orders. That's the demand management process flow. So what does that schedule look like? Well, for that first one, for demand and supply type plans, the plan is automatically the demand schedule. Okay, and I'll show you that. I'm going to try to get into a demo at the end here and actually show you that in demand and supply planning. For the demand type plans, it's not applicable, right? There's no reference to supply planning in just the demand management plan, and that's what I talked about earlier. I've got the 3 strategies. Am I going to come in just into demand management, or utilize demand supply planning, or take it all the way out and create the orders and send them back into JDE Edwards? For the supply type plans, you need to specify which demand plan to use as demand schedules. Okay, so what are the capabilities of demand management? It's a comprehensive solution that helps organizations predict and manage customer demand effectively, and it really does. And once I get my data elements and I get my configuration in place, it's just a matter of creating the plans, going against those categories. I'll get into that in a minute. Refreshing that data and looking at what the output is. Okay, so I can sense demand real time. I can predict demand accurately. I can replenish efficiently to meet that demand. I can extend the planning process as I see fit. Of course, it should allow you to respond faster to market changes, improve forecast accuracy, predict demand for new items, and that's the thing. So I'll get into that a little later. That's easier said than done. Reduce inventory investments, improve customer service levels. So those are the high-level capabilities of demand management. Some of the functional capabilities: forecasting and planning. So demand management uses advanced forecasting algorithms to predict future demand based on historical data. make trends, and other relevant factors. It assists in creating accurate demand forecasts, which are essential in inventory planning, production scheduling, and resource allocation, right? So that it's all of that is built in. So when I do my data mapping and I bring in the data, the items from whichever area, marketing, sales, historical analysis, it takes those algorithms and it builds it for you. This demand sensing and signals. The system captures real-time demand signals from various sources, such as sales orders, point of sale data, and social media. By analyzing these signals, organizations can respond quickly to changes in customer demand and adjust their strategies accordingly. I'm not sure you're going to want to do that last piece, but okay, so collaboration and integration. Demand management facilitates collaboration across departments, including sales, marketing, and supply chain. So again, if I brought in the data from those differing departments, I can then, after I create the plan, I can send it out back to them and have them say, no, this is right, no, this is wrong. Okay, and what's the output of that? I'll show you actually some of the output if you've got it into the plan when I get into the demo. So teams can work together. It can integrate with other systems, and of course, inventory optimization. Efficient inventory management, of course, is crucial for meeting customer demands. We all know that. Oracle Demand Management helps optimize inventory levels by recommending reorder points, safety stock, and replenishment changes. That's a big deal, and I'll show you the safety stock tab. It's not on the plan that I have, but I'll go into demand and supply planning and show you that there. Demand-driven supply chain. Organizations can transform from a traditional supply chain-driven approach to a demand-driven one, right? I always kind of equate that to kind of the bomb pit and the flow production. It takes time. It's a challenge. This means aligning production, procurement, and distribution with actual customer demand patterns, right? Start looking at that data. Start, looking at the transaction from a historical perspective. Analytics and insights. The solution provides dashboards, reports, and analytics to monitor demand performance. You don't just use the work area in demand management. There are some reports, some decent delivered ones, but of course you can build some as well. So that gives you the insight into demand variability, seasonability, and product life cycles, right? Because that's the thing, you're going to ebb and flow. You have peaks and valleys depending on your industry and your cycles. Okay, so now we start to get into the actual integration with JDE Edwards. So JDE Edwards offers direct integration capabilities for external applications. Oracle Fusion is one of them. Its integration framework enables seamless data exchange and communication between JDE Edwards and various third-party systems such as CRM, HR, supply chain management, and more. And we're focused on supply chain management. These integrations enhance operational efficiency, streamline business processes, and facilitate real-time information sharing across the enterprise. So, what is that process flow for demand management if I'm utilizing JDE Edwards? Okay, so the typical demand planning process, it first refreshes those historical bookings and shipments, the demand to ensure both statistical forecasts, and then planners have access to the most current and up-to-date information. So it's grabbing that data, you're sending it over, I'm running the plan, refreshing it, and I have real-time data and it's analysis. The statistical forecasting engine reviews historical demand for patterns, trends, and other explainable variations based on these learning and future causal factors. The engine generates the statistical forecast. Now, it does it, and it's fantastic, but there's detailed configuration to get that done, right? But it does it. Planners and stakeholders review the statistical forecasts and/or forecasts created in previous planning cycles. Right? It keeps a history of them. I archive them. As needed, users can modify forecasts using a chain of override measures that use a trumping paradigm such that one overrides the other. Okay, so these last two I've got in blue because it's utilizing demand and supply planning. So finally, the resulting approved forecast is used to drive supply planning. Meanwhile, the historical forecasts are archived so that forecast error analysis can be conducted. So again, if I'm in demand management, there's only so much I can do. I can change the forecast, but I mean that's dangerous, right? I can edit my forecast, but if I have the other modules, if I have demand and supply planning, I can collaborate with those people where I got the data from. I can have levels of approval. I can then create the orders. I can send them back to JD Edwards. Okay, so when I start, this is kind of my vanilla start sheet of my functional data mapping. This isn't the actual data mapping. I can't show you that. All of mine have client names throughout, and that's more detailed. But this is typically where I go in and I start to get the details of what a client wants to do, mapping from JD Edwards to data management. So some of these probably jump out at you like right away. Of course, I want to create that forecast. Looking at 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so I want to be able to monitor it, right? I want that accuracy. If it's inaccurate, to kick out an error. I want it to be, I want to be able to take into the consideration some of the seasonal factors. I want to be able to have a calendar that I can work with on that forecast. So, and I'm looking at like 12, 13, 14, and 19 there. So I want to be able to export this out as well, depending on what I'm doing, right? Depending on if I'm collaborating or not. And perhaps I even want to see more detailed information, even things like, currency and freight data. So this is my typical starting point. And then I whittle it down, work with the technical team, give them this functional spec. Then we start to create the data mapping. The next thing, once we've decided on a strategy, I've created my overall mapping on what I need. I then start to build my process flow. Now, I know this is like a 50,000 foot flow. And where the little red cloud, red outline cloud, that's supply chain planning. So I've got JD Edwards and I'm bringing everything over here. It's showing an FBDI. I'm not going to get into the technical pieces too much. And it's sending it over to supply chain planning. And then depending on what I do with it, it comes back to JD Edwards. So this is about 25,000 feet, but this is strictly utilizing demand management, right? And in fact, that's the thing. If you're just using demand management, there's actually a REST API in Oracle that I can use, okay? But then again, I don't have a whole lot of functionality there once I'm in demand management. But maybe that's, depending on your organization, that's all you want. If I can run demand management, run my plan, look at my forecast, run the report, see what orders need to be created, that type of thing, do some type of comparative analysis through reporting, no reason you can't then go manually create the orders, okay? These actually explode real well. So this is now an actual flow at a client, and you can see up top I'm starting with it's IT who's created the demand management plan. They then these different cascading pictures here are the different departments collaborating in and giving you that information that they want into the plan. But then it all comes back into demand management, right? And I refresh that plan. Again, this is an actual flow from a client. These ones are highlighted in kind of a burnt orange. So you can see, again, I load and collect my planning data. I verify it, right? I look at it, make sure it's accurate. This is, as you can see, is utilizing demand and supply planning. I go through those other stages of getting the collaboration and the buy-off, but ultimately I end up with my adjusted forecast and my output. So these are the typical tasks. So I just showed you that flow that I would have at a client when they say, well, what am I actually going to do during the week, during the month? That last one was actually a weekly calendar for them. And this kind of is a monthly calendar, and it lists for you those tasks that you're actually going to do in probably IT. working with the other teams. So if I'm just, using some of, again, I'm just using the delivered, the REST API or the FBDI from Oracle Cloud. There's 5 seeded dimensions provided: product, customer, org, time, and demand class. And okay, so here, each of those dimensions has a predefined hierarchy, and alternate hierarchies can also be defined and uploaded. The default product hierarchy has only 3 levels: item, category 1, and category 2, which is inadequate for most client purposes and therefore may not be populated. Okay, so I left that in because it doesn't look at items. It looks at, and I still dislike the way Oracle talks about, goes back and forth between category and catalog, right? They use it differently and synonymously throughout the enterprise. You know what? In a nutshell, you can't do it by item unless you do a customization to their integration, and we do that. We do that almost all the time. Clients want to see it at the item, but that's also in building that catalog, and that hierarchy is where I then define the new items, and that's usually a big deal. They want to see what's happening with their new items. There's also a pre-seeded hierarchy on the calendar. Pretty straightforward: month, quarter, and year. Okay, so how do you actually, I'm not going to get into too much detail technically, but setting the data range for the extract. JD Edwards Enterprise 1 order information can be extracted in full or incrementally. So then the next bullet point: for incremental extracts, a parameter is set in the XML file that defines from today's date how many days backward and forward to generate the date range to be extracted. And I'm not going to read the bottom 2. It actually looks like this in JD Edwards, where we make that work. Okay, so in Oracle Cloud, they call them work areas, but I don't know, being a hardcore supply chain guy, I'm not sure they're really work areas, but there is a front page where I see all this information. So for today, that second bullet point, demand management work area, is where I'm going to be focused on. I can view multiple plans. I can use predefined page layouts, and I can create multiple page layouts tailored to the business process. Okay, and I'll show you that. Now I've got some slides that actually show the system in case I wasn't able to get in. I'm hoping I'm able to get in. So typically I work a lot in supply chain execution, which is over here. It's all the inventory stuff is, but today we're in supply chain planning. You can see we're going to be in demand management, but you can see down here collaboration as well as demand and supply planning. So it's going to look like this. I'll get into it. There's the actual grid menu. I'm going to actually get into a plan. So this, though, is one of the good delivered reports that you'll have that you can incorporate with your process and looking at the forecasts to make that decision on whether to take it to the next level or not. Okay, so brief walkthrough in Oracle Fusion. Demand management, first of all, MAPE, the mean absolute percentage error. It utilizes that. It's based off that. So, to dumb it down, it takes data and it turns it into percentages, is essentially what MAPE is, right? So I'll show you a plan. If you want, you can edit and adjust the plan. And then we have charts and graphs. Okay, so let's see if I can get in. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So I'm going to go in as Oracle super user, hopefully. Come on, come. Okay. And there's my supply chain execution, but I am looking today at supply chain planning. So there's demand management, and then I told you that there is my collaboration for both demand and supply, right? I can talk with other departments. I can make it to where there's approvals on the changes that they're making to the forecast. I can then take it over to demand and supply planning, and I will actually come back to demand and supply planning. But for right now, let's say I've brought stuff over and I'm going into demand management. I'm going into the work area. It's going to retrieve that data. So I've created some plans, and it shows the latest plan. Okay, so when in the slides where it talked about you have options of layouts, these are the layouts that if you know Oracle Cloud at all, you know these infolets, these pages, you can make them look the way you want, right? This is a demo site. So and this is what though I use generally anyways, is the demand plan summary. I want to see my last plan, and it's looking at my last plan. Okay, and I'm going to come back to this. I'm actually going to want to get into that plan. So again, it's not rocket science. I collect my data. In fact, I can do that and cancel. I load my data. This is all coming in though electronically, but those are the areas that it's hitting if I'm bringing it in from JDE Edwards. Come on. It builds a plan. So there's my demand plan. I'm going to go in and edit mode. Okay, so right away the tabs up here, you can see that safety stock and supply aren't highlighted, right? That's because this is just coming in and using demand management. Okay, so there's a lot going on these pages. It's all configuration though. So on this first one, scope, I'm defining what organizations I'm doing this for and how I'm building that catalog. So you can see the hierarchy is called a catalog. But this down here, it's looking at the category of laptops, okay? And where is it pulling it from? Is it accessible to everyone? Yes. Okay, so the next page is my actual calendar for my forecast, okay? So I'm going out to 28. This is of course fake data, but I want to be able to look at stuff. This is built so I can see stuff going forward. So with that, let's just do this. So I created a plan. I created it for a category. Didn't mean to do that. Okay, so these infolets up top, these 5, these are delivered. Only 2 are really good that we definitely keep. We keep the new products and we keep the shipments forecast based off MAPE. Okay, but I mean these aren't so bad depending on your industry and organization. So let's look at budgets versus shipments. Okay, so you'll notice these ones are in green, right? That means everything's honky dory, right? Okay, and I'm old, so I don't like that. I like this. Okay, so everything is, looking good on this as far as budget compared to shipments. Okay, but now let's look at new products, and this one we always use, right? But why is it in yellow? I don't know. So let's take a look. This one we like because it builds the grid and the analysis by the item level for you. It's the only one that does that. Okay, so this is in yellow. My new products are in yellow. It's actually showing me the products. These colors up here are products, but over here, why is it overall in yellow? Okay, because it looks like marketing has higher numbers than the actual historical forecasts. Typical marketing, right? Samantha? Typical marketing. Okay, so let's get to the main one. And why is it in yellow? This is my shipment forecast, okay? So these ones with the darker pinkish orange, they're the ones that there's issues with. Okay, so what are the issues? So I'm going to highlight it. Now I'm going to drill down into it. And I like the historical forecasts. And I already told you I don't like that. I like to look at the grid. Okay, so what's going on? Why is it in yellow? Okay, well, right away I can see November. My history is better than my future. That's one of the reasons that it's showing yellow up top. That's why it's in red at the item level. So let's get out of there. Let's get out of there. And let's go home. So that's the work area. Those two infilets are good. I'm going to use it. Then if I've got the other modules, I'm going to collaborate, right? I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to go back, sorry, because I should have shown you on one of those. One of the big deals with collaboration is I'm coming back and forth and I'm going into the plan. I'm looking first to see the plan and see what the forecast is. I showed you that. I won't bother actually doing that. I'm going to come back. And now that, let's say I've refreshed my data, I'm going to go in on one of these. I could go into either one and look at the grid. And am I going to change it? Am I going to edit it? Yeah, I don't want to edit. I don't want to mess with it, right? That's a big deal. You don't mess with the forecast. Well, you have to we set up an approval. There's an approval process, especially for like, the sales and the marketing teams, right? That has to be approved by supply chain. Okay, so now let's get out of there. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back. And let's go into demand. So you notice, remember I said those other ones were grayed out. Okay, so I collaborate and then I publish. I should have showed you from the actions. I've got to publish the plan. If I publish the plan, it then comes over to demand and supply planning. Okay, and if I did my job right. So you can see a lot more functionality here with the plan inputs, with forecasting. That's why you want demand and supply planning. And there's my plan for 4D. Okay, but I'm going to create a new plan. This is where I'm going to wrap up. But I want to get into I want to get into the supply tab because I want to see if I'm able to create some orders. And it's not going to let me. It's going to ask for, if I remember, 3 or 4 things. That's JD Edwards. Come on. It's still going to ask me for a calendar. Yeah. And then I think a name. I'll use my name. And it should let me in. I don't care about the safety stock right now, but we can do that too. So what I wanted to show you that there's tabs within tabs once I get in here, and I'm going to need all these. I just don't create those orders, right? I want to build all this configuration so that then down here I click it off on the process scheduler. I create the orders. I can just, like min-max report, I can just have the report and do nothing. Or if I've got the full-blown integration to actually create the orders in JD Edwards, I can do that. We kind of see both, right? Sometimes the order just is there and then they create the orders manually, but sometimes we do automatically create them. And again, so that's supply chain planning. So that was demand management. And you saw that area that it was pulling it from. I have, a drop down. One of those can be JD Edwards. So I can start next week.
Just a quick question. How many of you are evaluating? Is anybody else implementing or you have maybe just one?
And there's no reason you can't, start out, baby steps, right? And we see that a lot too. We come back, right? We start out with just demand management, and they look at the forecast. They learn how to actually change the data mapping on what they want to see, and where the departments that it's coming from, and then how to edit the forecast, and then create the orders. And it takes time. And then they start bringing in demand supply planning, and then perhaps integrating back. Any questions? Well, thank you for your time.